A day inside that Iowa courtroom, but who had the better day, the prosecution or defense? Let's bring back in our think tank, and we'll begin out there in Dubuque with Daniel Deloy. Daniel, prosecution or defense today?
Well, I think definitely the prosecution had a better day as far as that goes. I don't believe that the defense pressed hard enough against Frazier or the pathologist to try to get a good explanation as to where he was, what his wife's feelings were about the knowledge of the affair once it was revealed to her directly, not from him, but from the defendant, and pressing on that. He came across quite cold, and I think that the defense left that hanging when they could have pressed that further.
Ben Githiea, criminal defense attorney, who had a better day, prosecution or defense?
Well, I'll start off by saying tomorrow's a new day. The defense can come back from this, but I believe that the prosecution had the better day. It wasn't completely one-sided, but I just think the cumulative effect of having so many different witnesses constantly saying, if he catches you, he's going to kill you. If he catches you, he's going to kill you. That's going to remain with the jury. But I think some good points came out for the defense as well, but I've got to give it to the state.
Prosecution or defense? Holly Waltman.
I agree with Ben. Having Terry and Deborah both say he's going to kill you, having Patricia come in and say he's going to take the kids, he's going to take the farm, and then the slam dunk was the doctor. I loved how she testified. Sometimes professional witnesses can get lost to juries, and I felt like she didn't dumb it down, but explained it perfectly.
Darrell Cohen, is the prosecution going for a clean sweep here?
They are not.
No.
I think Amy was a terrific victim. I call this the soap opera murder. It seems to me that all of the witnesses, though the state did a nice job, they haven't learned KISS. Keep it short, keep it simple, stupid. They were competing with each other. It was complex, and it doesn't need to be complex. Amy made herself into a great victim, and I think the jury was watching the facial language, facial expressions, and the body language of the man who's charged with his wife's murder. I'll give it to the defense.
All right. That was today. Tomorrow is another day. Let's check in with CourtTV's crime and justice reporter Ted Rollins with a look ahead.
All right, coming up, Vinny, the end of the prosecution case is expected tomorrow. The rest of their witnesses, the judge said they only have a couple left, and we are expecting to see video of Todd Mullis immediately after his wife died. His story about what happened, the jury will be able to see it for themselves during watching this videotaped testimony, if you will, with investigators. That coming up tomorrow. Vinny?
All right. Thanks so much, Ted. How important is that going to be? Hearing from the defendant himself in his police interview.
It's going to change everything. I mean, him having to testify is going to, I think it's going to be more clear after we see, has he already testified?
Correct. He's going to be telling his story tomorrow. Will the jury kind of put everything else aside and focus on him saying, is this guy telling police the truth?
Absolutely, because this is the first and only time the jury will have had an opportunity to see him and see him naked, not body naked, but naked in his mind. It's the first time they will see his facial expressions, his body language, and how he expresses himself to the police, his veracity or lack thereof.
Daniel, are you surprised that the prosecution is going to show the jury this? Basically let him tell his story.
No, I think they're anticipating him not testifying, and they're maybe using this as an opportunity to demonstrate whether or not he had any type of cold demeanor or evasiveness. And it may be a little bit of a risk, but I feel like they're going for the last straw on this.
Yeah, and from my perspective, I think what's going to be key to this interview is what exactly does he say? Because we know in the 911 call, he's talking about an accident. And he's talking about accident. So maybe what prosecutors are going to do with all this is say, well, he had his story. This was going to be the story, that it was a farm accident. And when, it came back that it was obviously not an accident, now the defense has switched gears on this whole thing. And maybe they're going to try to impeach the entire defense case with the words of the defendant himself. The only thing I don't like about it is it clearly will take away I think, the need for him to testify, or the chance that he may testify, which is, me as a prosecutor, that's what I want. I want the defendant on the stand. I want the opportunity to have him up there in front of the jury live, where they cannot control, his attorneys can't control what he says, when he says it, or how he says it. But we shall see. That is coming up tomorrow. When we return here, we're going to switch gears to the next big trial on Court TV. It's out of Dallas, Texas. Police officer getting off of her shift enters the apartment of a man who lives directly above her. He's an accountant, just eating dinner. She gets into the apartment, shoots him, and kills him. She's now charged with murder. What could her defense possibly be? We're going to break down Texas law tonight here on Closing Arguments.
According to an anonymous law enforcement official who spoke to Dallas Morning News, former Dallas police officer Amber Geiger ended a 15-hour shift and was still in uniform when she parked on the wrong floor of her parking garage at the Southside Flats. Geiger lived on the 3rd floor, but parked on the 4th floor of the parking garage. After entering the building, she then walked to where her apartment would have been and stuck her key into the lock.
I mean, I personally don't think it could happen. I think it can go to the wrong floor, but then you know automatically that it's not your floor. Like, I mean, I have went to the wrong floor before, but I knew that it wasn't my floor.
How did you know that?
The rugs and then these big lights, the numbers on it.
Reportedly, the apartment was unlocked, so the door opened, and when Geiger entered the apartment, the lights were out. She then saw someone moving in the dark and thought there was an intruder. The ex-cop then pulled her weapon and fired twice. One shot missing Botham Jean, and the other one hitting him in the chest. 26-year-old Jean later died in a nearby hospital.
Now, in this case, there is no disputed fact that Botham Jean was in his own apartment. There is no disputed fact that Amber Geiger had no right to be in Botham Jean's apartment. There's no dispute that Amber Geiger intended to shoot and kill Botham Jean. And there's no dispute that under Texas law, that's enough to prove murder. So what exactly is the defense going to be here? Now, if you listen to the 911 call that was leaked online, it seems pretty obvious to me. In that 911 call, Amber Geiger tells the operator in one form or another, quote, "I thought I was in my own apartment 19 different times." She says that. She's claiming she made a mistake. She thought she was going into her apartment. And under Texas law, that's a potential defense. Now, Texas Penal Code 8.02, mistake of fact. It is a defense to the prosecution that the actor, through mistake, formed a reasonable belief about a matter of fact if his mistaken belief negated the kind of culpability required for the commission of the offense. So if Amber Geiger was entering her own apartment, which she was not, but if she was, and there was an intruder inside, her use of deadly force would be justified under Texas law. Citizens can protect themselves and their property with deadly force under Texas law. So here, the key for the defense may be the electronic key used in the apartment complex where Geiger and Botham Jean lived. Our CourtTV team visited the complex, and I want to explain how this key works and how the defense may argue that Amber Geiger may have made a reasonable mistake in believing she was entering her own apartment that night with the wrong key. All right, let's take a look at some photos that we have of this door and these locks in that apartment complex. First, looking from the outside, that's the electronic key going into the electronic key lock. Beneath that is a door handle that has no lock on it. The way it gets locked is the electronic key. Next view, side view. You can see right here, the outside is on the left, the inside is to the right. There's a manual lock for that electronic key lock on the inside. Again, the door handle has no lock. Next photo, please. There it is. On top, there's a third lock that can only be done from the inside. That is the deadbolt. You still have the electronic key and the door handle with no lock. Next photo. This is from the inside view. This is the key to this defense, is that If the door is unlocked and you close it, it can remain unlocked. You must manually lock it, either with the deadbolt or the manual lock for that electronic key. Question I have for the think tank. We only have a couple minutes here.